to each other. We should get them in here. Damn, somebody out there. We got Liz and Sean. We need, you guys will need something to write on in a pen so you can figure out numbers real quick. Just so you can use real quick on the back. We're going to work up to a 3, 5, 7, 9 to failure. But use the percentages on the back. See how this works for you. So to work off the 3, 5, 7, 9 template on here, it's towards the bottom. It says 3, 5, 7, 9 to failure on the bottom. So use those percentages off of your guesstimated 3 rep maximum. So you will see it says in the box times 3. So it says 95 to 100% for a 3 rep max. The RPE should be 9 to 10. Alright, everyone's here? Everyone's here? Okay, shut that door please. So again, you'll need something to write on to figure out your percentages. So we're working up to a 3 rep max in the deadlift. It's a clean 3 rep max. You're not breaking down any position. It's a perfectly dialed in deadlift. Then we're going to break down about 5% each set for 5 to failure. So 3 max for 3, then 5 to failure. 7 to failure, 9 to failure, taking 5% off each time.
3, 7, 9, 11, or just 9?
3, 5, 7 will stop at 9. Okay. And then, so you're going to work up to your 3 RMX. If you have no clue what your max is on this, I would use something close to what your squat rep maximum was. If it was for 5, maybe you can guesstimate plus or minus based on what you think it is. If you have no clue, like you won't with a client, but remember, first do no harm, so work them up slowly and find a relatively good set. It's going to take you a while to work up to that top, so I always like to go real slow and steady, and that's where I use the RP. It really tells me a lot. So let's go to 110, I'll have was at 5. Okay, how much should I jump on weight to get to the rep maximum on this? So that's how you can figure this out. So I want you to establish, write down what you think your rep maximum might be. If it's a 1 rep max, you know that. So Chris, for example, you did, what was it last week, 180 kilos?
Yeah.
396 for 1.
430 for some.
It was 430 for single, and we'll call that shaky form in terms of
okay, yeah.
But it was a single, so we could say, and it was after the workout. So let's say if you're doing 95% that for a triple, for a clean triple, base your percentages off of that.
Okay.
And then on here for your warm-up sets, what I have here is, other than the barbell, I always start with a barbell. That's a given. On a barbell, on a bench press, on a deadlift or a squat, it's always 45 for 10 to 15 reps. Always. Then you go to your first warm-up set, which these are actually for someone who lifts under 300 pounds, typically. For 300 pounds or beyond, I actually have another warm-up scheme that adds more warm-up sets to get to this, but see how it works and add something in if you need to for a warm-up. But typically speaking, would be barbell for 10 to 15, whatever you need. Could be 5 reps even. Then a roughly 10 reps with 50% should be an RP of about a 5. Then you're doing 75% for a set of 5. Then you're doing 90% for a set of 5. Then you're doing 95% for a triple, or that might be your maximum. I always like to test out on those heavy weights, one feeler set to see if it's there or not, instead of just jumping with your rep maximum, like today in squatting. So if I want to hit a 250 kilo back squat, I'm going to hit 240 first and see if it's rational that it's there. So it's a good way to do it. People might think you might be fatigued going into it, but it's a great practice for it and get you neurologically and confidence primed up to actually hit a good solid single. So I've maxed out many times in my life, and it's just a good way to go about it. So then from there, once you find your peak, and we all say it's good solid form, then you're going to break down 5% each time. 5 to failure, 7 to failure, 9 to failure. That's how that scheme works, but also it's just so we can go over deadlift technique. Secondly, after that, we're going to go to a quick 5 rep max on the RDL. It's harder to dial in a tight rep maximum on RDL. It's more, if you consider a finesse move of deadlifts, it's hard to dial in the perfect technique on an RDL without a lot of practice. Postural position, hyperextensions, you should feel exactly the same way, but depends on your mastery with that. Finally, we're going to do a 5 rep max on snatch grip deadlifts. What's going to happen there when you max out, the heavier you go on that, your hips are going to want to shoot. So it's about keeping your hips locked down tight, chest and eyes up. We'll have a good picture of that on the wall in here. So if you see the pictures out here, I'm going to add a lot more to the deadlifts though, but there's some good examples of young, old, snatch grip deadlift, conventional deadlift. Remember who we're talking about again here. We're not talking about athletes per se, or anybody, or powerlifters or anything like that. We're talking about body composition and symmetry here. So we're teaching a very symmetrical deadlift here. So it's anatomical alignment, hip to shoulder width apart depending on how wide the hips are. These guys, some of the tall guys might actually be fairly narrow because their hips are narrow. So relatively straight femurs here versus trying to get open and out with the knees. So squatting might be a little bit wider than the deadlift stance, but it's a pretty straightforward stance there. Pretty straight here, but I still want the knees out like a cowboy. Knees should generally be outside the ankles. Then from there, you're standing up with good posture. It's that simple. Good posture. Postural position, come down, grab the bar, dial it in. Now, it's an easier way to pick up the bar like that without, everyone's always trying to get dialed in like this and they're starting off with a bad position. It's an easy fix to have them start postural position, come down, into place and grab the bar. If they're using straps, it's hard to do those. So you got to play with that and see what works the best. Stance, stance, grip, we got to go through a lot of stuff and fixes and whatnot. Verbal cues we got to go over. White discs, I don't like people lifting in outer space, so that's why the white discs are there, to establish lifting off the ground. I don't like people picking up off the racks and walking with barbells, knowing how to walk with weights, right? So you want to lift off the ground, establishing power through the ground. If you're walking around, you don't know where your feet end up, and you could be cockeyed like this trying to deadlift. The whole point of this is to have a very strong symmetrical lift. I go 2 overhand grips, try not to stagger there. If your grip is failing, you go to hook grip, use chalk or straps. Unless they're a wrestler, football player, something like that. Again, who are we working with? Most people, think of our clients who are working most of the time that pay the money, don't want chalk on their hands, and they don't give 2 shits about it over on your grip. If they're a powerlifter or something like that, you name it, that would make sense. But you got one shoulder internally rotated, one externally rotated. Not really good balance or symmetry there. So I just like symmetry. That's the main point of that. Plus, this you'll also tend to shift quite a bit when you're pulling like this. So you're going to get some hip imbalances as well too, from pulling that way or shit even that way. So another reason why I'm not a big fan of it. So just to review, conventional deadlift is right there. That's all it is. So it's one of the easiest compound lifts to get someone to do. It's a lot easier than a squat. So we'll work on range of motion problems and issues there. Stance, weight in the heels, toes up, butt back, knees out, chest and eyes up. Posture hold position should always be intact. So we'll look at those pictures too and pick those things up. A lot of this I'm going to yell out once we go through this because I'm going to see problems and cue that. So I'm not going to hound you down the details tonight. If we get to hybrid stuff, I like to go over one-legged RDLs, one-legged good mornings, maybe a thick bar, maybe an elevated surface, snatch grip, we're doing that one. One-legged RDLs I'd like to see, there's a lot to that. Waiter's bows to fix the RDL. Okay, sorry, thinking out loud. So grab a platform, a barbell after we look at the pictures, and then get set to work up to a 3 rep max. Got it? Let's look at the pictures first.